The wind blew through the narrow streets of Sheffield, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and the distant hum of buses making their way through the evening traffic. In a modest two-bedroom flat above a small grocery store, a boy sat by the window, watching droplets slide down the glass as though they were racing each other. His name was Ethan Williams, 15 years old, with a mop of dark brown hair that always seemed a little too unruly, and eyes the color of storm clouds, eyes that carried the heaviness of someone much older. Ethan was not like most teenagers his age. While his classmates spent weekends at the mall or scrolling endlessly on their phones, Ethan found solace in music. It wasn't just a hobby. It was his refuge, his lifeline, his one true place where the world's noise quieted down, and he could finally breathe. The flat was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional cough from the other room, where his mother rested. Claire Williams, once a woman full of fire and energy, had been worn thin by years of double shifts as a nurse, followed by a sudden illness that forced her to stay home. She carried her exhaustion like a second skin. Ethan often tiptoed around, not wanting to disturb her rest, but tonight he couldn't hold back the song rising in his chest. He pulled out his battered notebook, pages filled with lyrics and doodles. Some were half-finished, others crossed out in frustration. He had never shown anyone his own songs. For now, they were secrets he whispered only to himself. He closed the book and instead reached for his old guitar, strings slightly out of tune, the wood chipped in places. It wasn't much, but it was his. He strummed a few chords softly, then sang under his breath. His voice was raw, unpolished, but carried a kind of aching beauty that made the walls of the little flat feel like a cathedral. He didn't notice that his mother had stirred and was now leaning against the doorway, her eyes glassy, not just from illness but from pride. "You're going to break hearts one day, Ethan," she said softly. Ethan jumped, embarrassed. "Mum, I didn't know you were awake." "I wasn't," she admitted, "but your voice, it woke me. And I'm glad it did." He looked down at the guitar, fingers fumbling on the strings. "It's not good enough. Not for, you know, something big." Claire walked over, sitting beside him with effort. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "It's more than good enough. And you know it. Don't hide from what you're meant to do." Ethan bit his lip, the words stuck in his throat. He wanted to tell her about the audition, Britain's Got Talent, that he had secretly signed up for weeks ago. He wanted to explain that this was his one shot to change everything, not just for him but for her too. To give her the life she deserved, without hospital bills piling up, without worrying about money every week. But fear clamped his tongue shut. Instead, he whispered, "Do you really think someone like me could stand on that stage?" His mother smiled, though her face was tired. "Someone like you, Ethan, you were born to stand there." School the next day was the same as always, a blur of chatter, football on the fields, and the constant feeling of being invisible. Ethan was quiet, not because he didn't have things to say, but because words always seemed too heavy for him to carry in crowded hallways. He endured the snickers of a few boys who never let him forget that he didn't fit in, that his shoes were worn, his accent too flat, his hobbies too weird. "Oi, Williams," one of them called as Ethan walked past with his guitar case slung over his back. "Going to sing us a lullaby again? Don't put us to sleep, yeah." The group laughed, their voices echoing like cruel bells. Ethan kept walking, gripping the strap of his guitar case tighter. He had learned long ago that responding only fed them. Still, their words found cracks in his armor, seeping in like cold water. But when he reached the quiet of the music room, it all faded. Here, he was free. He sat at the piano, fingers tentative at first, then stronger, until the melody filled the empty room. He sang, letting out every wound, every bruise that words couldn't express. Unbeknownst to him, his music teacher, Mr. Harding, stood outside the door, listening. When the final note faded, Harding stepped in, his eyes wide with something close to disbelief. "Ethan," he said, voice steady but warm, "do you have any idea how rare that is? The way you sing, it's not just skill, it's soul." Ethan flushed, ducking his head. "It's nothing, sir. Just practice." "No," Harding said firmly. "Don't dismiss it. You've been given a gift. You must share it." He paused, studying the boy. "Have you ever thought about Britain's Got Talent? Auditioning?" The words hung in the air, almost like fate. Ethan's heart pounded. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. How could he explain he had already registered, that the audition was only days away? Maybe, Ethan murmured. But, I don't think I'm ready. Harding shook his head. You'll never feel ready. That's the point. But when the moment comes, you'll rise to it. Mark my words. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. He replayed his teacher's words, his mother's encouragement, and the laughter of his classmates, all tangled together in a storm inside his mind. The fear was loud, but so was the dream. He closed his eyes and imagined the stage, the blinding lights, the sea of faces, the judges sitting with expectant stares. He imagined the silence just before he sang, and then, the release. The world finally hearing what had been locked inside him all these years. His chest tightened with both terror and hope. He whispered into the darkness, "Please, let me be enough." And in that fragile, trembling prayer, Ethan drifted into sleep, unaware that his life was about to change forever. The morning of the audition broke with a pale, uncertain sun peeking through the thin curtains of Ethan's bedroom. For a moment, as he blinked awake, he wondered if it had all been a dream. His secret application, the acceptance email that had nearly made his heart stop, the printed confirmation letter folded neatly in his desk drawer. But when he rolled over and saw the guitar case leaning against the wall, reality came rushing back, heavy and exhilarating all at once. Today was the day. The flat was quiet except for the faint clatter of dishes in the kitchen. His mother was already awake, which surprised him. Usually mornings were hard for her, her body slow to cooperate. But when he walked in, there she was, hair tied back, dressed in her old wool sweater, trying to fry eggs with a smile that seemed stitched onto her tired face. "You're up," she said softly, as though she hadn't been waiting for this moment as long as he had. "Breakfast first. You can't sing on an empty stomach." Ethan sat down, appetite absent but heart swelling with gratitude. She slid the plate in front of him, though he noticed her hands trembled slightly as she set it down. He ate slowly, each bite turning to stone in his throat. Finally, she reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "Ethan," she whispered, "no matter what happens out there today, you've already made me proud. Do you hear me? Already." His throat closed up. He nodded, unable to find words. The drive to the audition venue in London was long and filled with silence. Ethan stared out the window of the bus, watching. Fields turn into towns, towns into the sprawling heart of the city. His guitar sat on his lap, the case pressed against him like a shield. Around him, other passengers scrolled on their phones, laughed, talked loudly about trivial things. But to Ethan, the world felt suspended, every second dragging toward the moment that both terrified and thrilled him. When the bus finally rolled into the city, his heart raced faster. He had seen London before, but today it looked different, bigger, brighter, almost menacing.